It's KP's Video News, yo.
That's right, it's KP's Video News, y'all. And over the weekend, oh boy, it was just like a lot of stuff going on. A lot of things happening, nationwide. And a lot of cities got, kind of hit pretty hard with some violence that was jumping off. And, a lot of violence in Denver, D.C., Chicago, Baltimore, Washington, Seattle, a lot of stuff jumping off. Portland, a lot of stuff jumping off, man. And so, violence struck many major cities over the weekend as police clashed with crowds, and gunmen injured dozens and a major gas explosion rocked the neighborhood. A riot was declared Sunday night in Portland where protesters blocked the road and set fires while marching to a police union building. Meanwhile, in Chicago, police involved shooting sparked unrest, and I'm going to get back to that one. Dozens of people were injured in shootings in Denver and the nation's capital. In Baltimore, at least 3 homes were involved in an explosion that killed at least 1 person and injured at least 2 others. And the major explosion in Baltimore has killed at least 1 and traps others. It was a major gas explosion that hit northwest Baltimore Monday morning, at least 1 person, and leaving several others trapped or injured. The Baltimore City Fire Department said that at least 3 homes were involved in the gas explosion that killed at least 1 woman. At least 2 occupants had also been transported to the hospital in serious condition. According to the city's local fire union, at least 5 people, including children, have been trapped, but 3 were rescued as of 10:30 a.m. this morning. And it's a major incident. And officials in Baltimore County Fire, the city's emergency management office, and Baltimore Gas and Electric are responding. And so it's like really crazy, man. Really crazy out there on that level. So you had 10 people that were injured in Denver, in a Denver drive-by shooting. 10 people were injured Sunday after a gunman apparently opened fire on a family gathering in a small park south of downtown. And police asked for the public's help in identifying the shooter. Investigators said it appeared the drive-by shooting was unconnected to the family's gathering and occurred shortly before 5 p.m. None of the victims appeared to have suffered life-threatening injuries. It said they are considered victims, and we're working in that direction, said Denver Police Department. And it sounds like it was just a family gathering. Campbell said 9 people were injured in the shooting, and the 10th person was hit by a vehicle while running from the shooting. Campbell said some of the victims are young but declined to give more specifics. He said 6 shooting victims were taken to the hospital by ambulance and 3 were taken by private vehicle. And Byers and Pecos Park, where the shooting occurred, is a small neighborhood park with a small play structure tucked in a residential neighborhood on the west side of Interstate 25 south of the city's downtown. And it's real crazy. And then they declared a riot in Portland and said a riot was again declared by authorities Sunday night in Portland when the protesters marched to a police union building, blocked the road, and set dumpster fires as officers worked to quell nightly unrest in Oregon's largest city. The protest was broken up almost as soon as it formed outside the Portland Police Union Association building, the same building where protesters were dispersed after a fire was started inside the union's offices the night before. Demonstrators had marched to the building from a nearby park. The road was blocked with fencing, and flames were seen rising from dumpsters in the middle of the street. Police began forcing the crowd of a couple of hundred away from the building, and while demonstrators were being dispersed, commercial-grade fireworks were thrown at officers, injuring two officers. And the police department released photos of the officers' injuries, including a face covering that partially melted from the fireworks. And some protesters returned to the Union building After officers cleared the area, police said the road was once again blocked and with fencing and small fires before broke out in the street again. Multiple people were arrested, police stated, but specific details weren't immediately available. And so I'm telling you, demonstrations this past week have been violent and notably smaller than the crowds of thousands who turned out nightly for about 2 weeks in July. Many of the city had hoped for calm after federal agents withdrew more than a week ago. And 3 officers were hurt, including the two that were taken to the hospital during the efforts to clear the crowd of several hundred outside the Union building late Saturday. And 2 hospitalized officers have since been released. Police arrested 24 people during the demonstrations overnight Friday after they said people defied orders to disperse and threw rocks, frozen or hard-boiled eggs, and commercial-grade fireworks at officers. And on to D.C., Washington, D.C., they had a shooting at a party in Washington, D.C., leaves a 17-year-old dead and 20 injured. And despite the a dispute that erupted into gunfire during a large outdoor party in Washington, D.C. early Sunday, left 1 person dead and some 20 others injured, including an off-duty officer struggling for her life. Christopher Brown died in the shooting that occurred after midnight in the southeast side neighborhood where people had gathered for music and food. So there was some kind of dispute and multiple weapons were produced. Police said at least 3 shooters may have been involved, though no arrests were immediately announced and no motive for the shooting was clear. Fellow officers took the injured off-duty officer to a local hospital. She's struggling for her life right now, he said, adding that the rest of the gunshot wounds, as far as we know, are non-threatening. There may have been hundreds of attendees at the party despite city restrictions during the coronavirus pandemic on such large gatherings, and we can't tolerate these type of gatherings in our city. And relatives of the teenager killed described him as one who was full of energy and quick to smile. He also had a 1-year-old son, and a lot of people knew him as a good person. And it's like, you know, it's the crazy stuff jumping off, man. That was just one weekend, and so like I said, you know, got to queue up this other thing for what happened in Chicago. And Chicago was just, I mean, it just exploded. So you had 100 people arrested and 13 officers injured after Chicago crowds clashed with police. Police in Chicago said 100 people were arrested and 13 officers injured after windows smashed and stole. When people smashed windows and stole from stores and clashed with police early Monday in Chicago's Magnificent Mile. That's like downtown, and downtown shopping district and other parts of the city's downtown. About 400 officers were dispatched to Chicago's downtown area after seeing posts on social media encouraging a caravan of cars to engage looting. Chicago Police Department Superintendent David Brown said at one point shots were fired at police and officers returned fire. This was not an organized protest, rather that this was an incident of pure criminality. This was an act of violence against police. But alongside the Magnificent Mile, people were seen going in and out of stores carrying shopping bags full of merchandise, as well as at a bank. The Chicago Tribune reported as the crowd grew, vehicles dropped off more people in the area. One officer was seen slumped against a building and a rock was thrown at a police vehicle. So Brown said a heavy police presence is expected in the downtown area, and a special team of investigators will examine hours of footage from Sunday night and pledge to pursue these officers. And so, like the mayor came out and said the city has activated a neighborhood protection program that would take place for foreseeable days until we know our neighborhoods are safe. And Brown said the unrest, which began shortly after midnight, was sparked by a shooting in the city's Inglewood neighborhood hours earlier. Officers responded to reports of a man with a gun, and a 20-year-old suspect fled. Officers said they were fired at, and they returned fire and struck the suspect, who Brown said is expected to survive. A gun was recovered, and the suspect was taken to a hospital for treatment, and 3 officers involved were taken to the hospital for observation, according to the statement from the police. After this shooting, a crowd gathered on the south side. He said tempers flared, fueled by misinformation, as the afternoon turned into evening. More than an hour after the shooting, police and witnesses said the crowd faced off with police after someone reportedly told people that the police had shot and wounded a child, and the crowd eventually dispersed. But later on, that city exploded, and people went and did whatever they did. And it's a crazy situation, man. Crazy stuff going on. So since I'm talking about cops and all this other things on that, I'm going to deal with another story here. They had like an off-duty police officer was fatally shot while working his second job as a USPS driver. Now, this is a little sidebar here, just about a conversation that I had with someone the other day, and they were saying that, yeah, well, the police make a lot of money, they do this and that, and I was trying to explain to them. I said, yeah, well, there are some cities, but not every city. Cops don't make that much money. I mean, it's like, here we have, this is a story here of a cop that's working a second job as a UPS driver. So there's a lot of stories. I hear a lot of stories about cops working second jobs as security guards and trying to earn extra money because, they don't make that much money. I mean, personally for me, I would never do that job because I would never want to put my life on the line for money. I feel that my life is more valuable than that. So I would not sell myself out like that to put my life on the line for a paycheck. That's just not how it works. Not for me anyway. But some of these people do it, and they don't make a lot of money. I mean, like firemen make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. They average about $75,000-$100,000 a year, maybe more if they're doing overtime. But cops, they're not making that kind of money. Back to the story here. 3 men have been arrested in connection with the murder of a Mississippi Highway Patrol officer while he was moonlighting as a postal worker. Troy Morris, 58 years old, was working his second job for the USPS and driving a postal truck early Friday morning when he called Highway Patrol and the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office to notify them of a flat tire. He dispatched a deputy who arrived a short time later and found Mr. Morris had been shot to death inside the truck. Anyway, Morris had been found shot to death inside his truck. And while Morris had been a 27-year veteran with the police force, according to the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, and the Mississippi Public Safety Commissioner said in a statement, he was in contact with the Morris family, and they have received an outpouring of support from the state, along with the governor. And on Saturday, Trayon Washington, Damian Whitley, and Kadarius Norman were arrested and charged with murder in connection with Morris' death. Washington was arrested in Jefferson County while Whitley and Norman were taken into custody in New Orleans. There were no signs of theft from the truck, according to investigators, and Norman and Whitley are awaiting extradition back to Mississippi. An investigation is ongoing, and they're talking about they are pleased with the progress of the investigation, and there's much more work yet to be done. And I'm telling you, man, it's crazy, man. We just kind of like stuck. We stuck in the middle. We are stuck in the middle. We stuck in the middle with all this nonsense, and it's just a bad situation. It's just bad. So do what you got to do to stay safe, folks. Don't get caught up in the foolishness out there.
What time is it? Say it's time for KP's Video News. KP Video News.
Peace.